Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sync, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC. And this is my second episode of my new podcast series, It's Time to Talk About. And it is my distinct pleasure to be joined by Charlie from Blue Brother today. Charlie, how's it going, man?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you, mate. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, wicked, mate, wicked. So, yeah, it's been a torrid season, and I think in particular, one thing that's been a hot topic and, you know, a lot of people are talking about is the defence. So, on today's episode of It's Time to Talk About, we're going to talk about Chelsea's defence, the defenders, and the absolute mess that is our centre-back situation. So, I've got some questions and stuff lined up, but just before we go into it, man, like, talk to me just your general feelings about our defence this season and at the moment.
Yeah, look, I think last season defensive, I think they had the third or fourth best defensive record in the league. Now, whether that's a reflection of the quality of defending in the Premier League or how good our defence, I think it's probably a combination of the two. But you know, we weren't awful defensively last season. The injury to Levi Colwill has kind of set us back massively. You know, he's such an important player, not just from a defensive standpoint, but also from our build-up from the back. There's no one that really replicates that other than Tosin, and he just doesn't really have the quality or the same ability or anywhere near that ability that Colwell's got. And so, yeah, I think you can put a lot of our failures this season simply down to the fact that we didn't replace Levi Colwill. It's essentially caused Enzo Maresca to walk out mid-season, and it set us back big time, and it could ultimately cost us a place in the top 5 in Champions League football next season. So, look, the defence has not been good. It's got even worse since Liam Rosenior came in. And yeah, when you're having to score 2 or 3 goals in a game minimum to be getting something out of a game, you know, you might get away with that once or twice, but you're going to struggle to pick up many points, and that's kind of what's happened. Yeah,
definitely, man. Do you know, it's wild as well, isn't it? Because in and around December, which is always the turning point for us recently, and I don't know why that is, we had like the most clean sheets in the league earlier this season. So even with the calamitous actual defenders that we've got, Enzo Maresca was managing to keep a reasonably tight performance until his inevitable downfall. So I want to pick up on something basically that you said there. Do you think that Enzo Maresca not getting that centre-back, because we all remember the news, it was he wanted one when Levi Colwill got injured and he was told, no, you've got to look internally, right? That was the message that came out. Do you think that that one decision not to replace Levi Colwill has basically been the one that has derailed our entire season?
It's difficult to say one decision's derailed the entire season because it's probably a multitude of issues that have contributed to where we are. But ultimately, that decision not to sign a centre-back, I think, set the wheels in motion for Maresca being irritated and annoyed with the ownership and the hierarchy sort of leading to fallings out and whatnot. And, you know, ultimately, most of our issues have stemmed from a defensive standpoint. And so every week that's gone by, every individual mistake that's been made, all the poor goals we're conceding. And by the way, I'm not saying we wouldn't have conceded poor goals and conceded, a number of goals this season if we had signed the replacement. But it's not just, we needed another defender. It's not what he brings defensively, but it's what he brought from a build-up point of view, in terms of setting the tempo, starting the attacks, the line-breaking passes, out from the back. Is you missed that as well. So it was a kind of a twofold thing with Colwill. You miss his defensive ability, but he also misses his ability to set the tempo and build the attacks from the back. So I think you can pin a lot of that decision on the shortcomings and the failures this season.
Yeah, okay. No, super interesting, man. And what I've got here is I went on StatMuse this morning to have a look at where we kind of sit in certain metrics. And the interesting thing is, for me, like, I 100% agree with you. I think that what we're missing from Levi Colwill wasn't necessarily just his defensive ability. I even remember at Brighton, like, he didn't tackle very much. You know what I mean? He was really good at intercepting and stuff, but his defensive attributes aren't necessarily his strongest as a centre-back, which is unusual. So looking at our performance across the Premier League and Champions League this season, there are a couple of glaring holes, right? And I'm not sure that one centre-back would have fixed these, actually. So expected goals against, we're 15th in the Premier League, which is, we've got like 41 expected goals against us. But the two massive ones for me really are blocked crosses, right? We are 20th in the league for blocked crosses. Yeah. And I'm not convinced that one centre-back would have fixed that problem. That to me feels like a systemic style thing about the way that we're playing. We're trying to play out from the back. We're putting far too much focus on can you pass and not can you defend. And the other one, what was it? It was block crosses. Oh, clearances. Clearances were 18th in the Premier League for as well. So that's just from the Premier League, actually. I'll quickly move on to the Champions League, where the pattern basically continues. And goals against, XG for goals against, 33rd. What's it, 36, 38 teams in the Champions League this season?
20, is it 20, is it 28 or is it 20? Oh, it's 32 maybe, I don't know.
I mean, we're 33rd, so we're pretty
maybe there's 34 or 36 teams, I can't remember.
Yeah, we are low down on that one as well. But also, block crosses, 33rd, and clearances, 35th. So it's at least 36 teams in the Champions League this season. So across both competitions, we are failing at the same things over and over again. And those seem to largely be down to being in the box, right? And obviously we know, like, we've had loads of issues with like set pieces, and I feel like we just don't have the right centre-backs for to be able to do both things, right? Because we need to be able to get these centre-backs to be able to play out from the back in the systemic style or whatever that we're doing, but also these centre-backs we do have can't defend in the box. Like, what's going on?
It's a big problem. I think, look, you can talk all day about, the modern game and how, there's obsession with playing out from the back. It's not necessary. You don't need to do it. We're moving away from goalkeepers and defenders that like the primary focus that they need to be good at, keeping the ball out of the net, tackling, clearances, reading the game. Instead, we're focusing about how many passes can they make, are they good at passing the football and all this stuff, where actually we need to take it back to basics. And I think you're finding now that, particularly from a Chelsea standpoint, is that we have got a collection of centre-backs who aren't really good at any of the things that we need them to be good at for the way that Liam Rossini wants to play, or the way that the ownership envisage the club playing. And something's got to give. You can't keep playing a system that you don't have the players for. You need to adapt to what you've got, and then when you get given those players, then we can start to try and implement that style of football. I think a lot of our issues are coming from the fact we're trying to play a way that we simply do not have the personnel for. You saw it with Ruben Amorim, sticking to that three at the back. He obsessed with it, wouldn't move away from it. United clearly didn't have the personnel to play that system. And I think with Chelsea, it's the same. It's not necessarily a system issue. It's more, the personnel issue to carry out that style of football. So, yeah, I think that's caused us a lot of issues as well. And, you could make a case that arguably, other than maybe a couple of the younger centre-backs, that are up and coming, should any of these guys even be here next season? Which is kind of a worrying thought, given how many defenders we've signed, given how much money we've spent on centre-backs, that other than Levi Colwill, you're struggling to make a case for any of those centre-backs to be here next season.
100%, man. I had a really interesting chat with my friend Kai a little while ago, and we were talking about Trevor Chalobah, right? And Trevor Chalobah has been arguably our most consistent centre-back this season. But Trevor Chalobah is the backup quality that we should expect, isn't it? And he's the guy that's been thrown into the firing line to kind of, he's had the most Premier League appearances, and like in terms of that guy who you want, do you know what I mean? Like getting you in Champions League spots and challenging for trophies and stuff. Trevor Chalobah is our best option, essentially, which leads me to another question about a different centre-back I wanted to ask you as well. What has happened to Wesley Fofana?
Yeah, it's been difficult. I've been a massive fan of Fofana. I thought he was brilliant at Leicester. Obviously, we spent big money on him. Yeah. I think most people thought, that's a pretty good signing. A young centre-back, one who's proven themselves in the Premier League, a lot of quality, a lot of potential. And I don't think anyone was really that unhappy with the signing. Obviously, he's had a lot of injury issues since he's been here. He's not played a lot of football. I think the start of last season, you could see that Fofana-Colwill partnership starting to show some signs of promise, starting to show signs of forming, an exciting partnership, one that you could maybe see, seeing us through for many years potentially. But again, back in the last season, he missed a lot of that. And then this season, he's been fit. This season, he actually has been available. Obviously, Chelsea managing his minutes. He's not really been able to play sort of 2-3 times a week or whatever, as we expected. But especially this last sort of month or two, his level has dropped so much, and I'm starting to think maybe people have slightly overrated him. Maybe myself, I've slightly overrated him. I'm not saying he's a bad defender, but I think again he's another example of he needs someone top level alongside him. We saw when Thiago Silva was still here, when Badia Shield first arrived, his first 6 months at the club playing alongside Silva, the guy looked unbelievable.
Incredible.
You look at Colwell playing alongside Silva, learning a lot. Chalobah was much more comfortable alongside Thiago Silva. So you're looking at it from a point of view where I don't think Fofana's got the best leadership qualities or the abilities to lead a back line, to marshal a defence. And some of the decisions he's making, he's rash.
Really?
Like when to go, when to stay, not being alert in the box. There's a number of goals this season where I can particularly remember at Arsenal against Arsenal at Stamford Bridge in the league in the 1-1 draw. Simple ball in that we didn't stop, and Fofana has just lost his man in the box. Same happened away at Atalanta. Didn't stop a simple ball in. Fofana nowhere to be seen in the box, free header again. There's a number of occasions where lack of concentration, poor decision making, getting caught out by simple balls over the top. I don't really know what's happened, but this is his 4th season at the football club now, and it does kind of get to a point where you're like, yes, you've had the injuries, yes, you've not been fully fit and available, but you were supposed to be so much more than this. And you kind of, and I'm sort of at a point now where I'm like, I don't really want to give up on him. But at the same time, I'm like, well, if you got an offer of, say, I don't know what, but if you got, say, 40, 45, maybe 50 million, if you could get somewhere between 40 and 50 million, I'd be very, very tempted to accept that and move him on. My only problem would be is I don't trust these guys to bring in someone better, because you look at the majority of players that have left, bar maybe 1 or 2 exceptions, the quality of player that's left has been replaced with worse quality. So that's kind of where you've got the problems as well.
Yeah, it's I 100% agree, man. It's definitely like I think a lot of hope was pinned on Wesley Fofana to lead the charge with, maybe bringing in like Tosin Adarabioyo, for instance, was brought in on a free from Fulham. That's just how it happened, isn't it? And I don't think we ever expected, or he ever expected, or anyone ever expected Tosin to play as much as he has. Vis-a-vis Wesley Fofana, the crazy thing is the Jekyll and Hyde-ness of his season for me this year, because at one point him and Trevor Chalobah had like 8 clean sheets in a row or so.
10 games. Yeah, they're doing really well.
Do you know what I mean? It was crazy. And then, like you say, what seems to have happened, especially since Liam Rosenior's come in, I think that we're definitely seeing like some players in the squad in general. Like if you look at João Pedro, for instance, obviously, having a really much better time.
Well, he's improved, yeah.
Yeah. Cole Palmer looks not better in terms of numbers and stuff, but he looks more like the Cole Palmer of old, and there's a few things. But on the reverse side of that, we've got players like maybe Enzo Fernandez and Wesley Fofana who are not buying what Rosenior is selling. And what was it? Which game was it recently where Fofana didn't even run? Like there was a ball.
Oh, that was the Newcastle game. Yeah, Newcastle at home, where, I mean, I'm not saying it definitely would have stopped the goal, but 9 times out of 10 it would have stopped the goal. But it's not even about whether he stopped the goal or not. It's about a lack of just basic application that you'd expect from a player on the football pitch. And look, Rosenior has definitely made things worse for us from a defensive standpoint. He's obviously looking to be more expansive, but the problem with that is that the trade-off is you're more open at the back. And when you haven't got when you've not got a good defensive unit, when you've got centre-backs who are prone to making mistakes, when you've got you've got a system that leaves us very open from a defensive point of view, where we've got a lot of runners on our centre-backs multiple times in games. You've got huge gaps in the midfield. We're very easy to play through the centre of the park. That's also not helping us either. Instead of setting us up to be hard to beat, we're set up in a way that makes us so easy to beat. We just talk about when you're struggling, like, what's the first thing you got to do? Make yourselves hard to beat. Set up in a way that you're difficult to beat. I honestly think that right now, Chelsea could be one of the easiest teams to play against in the league.
Yeah, wow.
Genuinely, because you're looking at us and you think there's no structure, there's no shape, there's no tactics.
No consistency.
The players don't. But there's consistency. We're just consistently crap. So there's no. You can tell that the players don't believe in the message that's being sent. They're not buying into the tactics because look, you don't have to be in the dressing room to know. You can tell by what you're seeing on the pitch. And we've seen it many, many times before with different managers, different groups of players, multiple different clubs or whatever, not just Chelsea, where you can tell from a level of performance whether a team is or isn't playing for the manager. Yeah. And I think that doesn't help either. But certainly Rosinia's tactics and the way that he sets up is not helping us from a defensive standpoint. When you're weak defensively, you want as little runners at your back line as possible. You want to make sure that, your back line's having the ball perhaps as little as often. You don't want to be seeing, 14, 15 passes in your own box when you're error prone like we are.
Yeah,
just get rid of it.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because sort of what you just said there as well is like Liam Rosinia's come in and changed the tactics. And the problem isn't even just the defence in that respect, is it? Because if we had the attackers and we were scoring 3 or 4 goals a game, then maybe things would be different, because momentum's really important, right? If you're up in a game, then all of a sudden the other team struggles a little bit more and, they question themselves. And like I say, momentum's a really important thing. So Liam Rosinia's style may be conducive with the right people to scoring more goals, but we're not even doing that. So if anything, we're just highlighting our defence even more. Do you know what I mean? Because we're not managing little things like with Cole Palmer. I think it was the PSG game where Cole Palmer got the ball and went for goal, and then within the next 15 seconds we've conceded. Do you know what I mean?
It's because we've committed so many men forward, and that's the problem. Enzo Maresca spoke about this. I think it was this season, like somewhere near the start of the season, where he's basically saying, "Look, we haven't got the players to play on transition. We simply don't have it." And we would never ever concede a goal like that Dembele goal in the first leg against PSG. Why have you committed so many men forward at that point in the game? It just doesn't make any tactical sense whatsoever. And the same can be said at the end of that first leg as well. You're 4-2 down. There's a second leg to play. Why at 93, 94 minutes is everybody up the pitch? It literally doesn't make any sense. So, we're in a difficult situation where the manager's tactics are woeful. He's massively out of his depth. I don't think he's got a great grasp of the game in general. We've got defenders who aren't good enough to play how he wants to play. Yeah. And so when you blend all those things together, it's no wonder you're kind of seeing what you're seeing.
Yeah. And it's impossible to disagree, man. Do you know what I mean? Just based on results and stuff. I think, not to go too much on Rosinia because we want to talk about defenders, but if you look at the original patch of games that he came in and did quite well, there were no serious opposition for that first 8 games or whatever.
And you could also argue that he was probably riding off Maresca's tactics a little bit as well, because you simply haven't got the time to implement anything new. Because when he come in January, February, certainly January, we were playing 3 games a week.
Yeah,
you just haven't got the time on the pitch to really implement anything. As soon as he's had a bit more time and he's put a bit more of his own stamp on it, we've seen a massive downturn in form, a huge downturn in form. And look, you can accept as a fan, you're going to lose games, and you can accept losing games, but there's a way to lose. And the way that we've lost these last 4 games, the 2 games against PSG, the Newcastle game and the Everton game, it's disgraceful. That can't happen. You're not even seeing anything that of signs of sort of a bit of light to cling on to. You thought, we lost that game, but at least we showed positive intent in certain parts of the game. There's been no positives in any parts of the game whatsoever.
It felt like that in the first leg of the PSG tie up until 3-2, and it felt like we were still in it and we'd actually played pretty well during the game. That 4th goal going in that match for me was the turning point, and nothing. It's just gotten worse since then, hasn't it?
Yeah, but again, you just quickly on that though, you look at it and like a more experienced manager, a team with more experienced heads, more leadership. Yeah. Forget what the manager's saying. Have a think, guys. There's about 15 minutes left. We're 3-2 down. Yeah. Let's lock this off. Let's take a 1-goal deficit back to Stamford Bridge, and we're banging this. Instead, stuck to ridiculous tactics, and within the space of 15 minutes, you put yourself from being bang in the tie to completely out of it. Yeah. And when you've got inexperience on the pitch and inexperience off the pitch, that this is what it leads to. And unfortunately, as fans, we don't deserve this, but, as from an ownership point of view, everything that's happened, we deserve this to be happening to us because it's happened by design. It's a result of a series of shocking decisions that have been made, an ownership point of view, a managerial point of view, and ultimately a player's point of view as well.
Yeah, inarguable, man. Absolutely inarguable. It's definitely a mess of our own making, and I do feel like Liam Rosenior's tactics is like a subcategory of messes of our own making. Do you know what I mean?
Because he's not helping himself.
No,
He's not helping. I know you've not got the personnel, but just set us up in a way
work
that
with what you've got.
we haven't constantly got shots on goal. We haven't constantly got runners at our back line. Just make us a bit more difficult to beat. Chelsea are so easy to beat right now.
Yeah, it's like I see one massive issue I've got is with the goalkeeping situation as well, which pertains to the defence because it all kind of mixes together. But he created this issue where he's dropped Sanchez. Now Sanchez has been dropped every single season since we've had him. Do you know what I mean? So it's not a massive surprise. But at the same time, up until recently, Sanchez was one of the better keepers in the league this season and was bailing us out, absolutely bailing us out of matches.
Mate, he was probably, I would argue up until that point, he was probably in our top 3 for player of the season. Now, whether that says, you can look at that twofold about the quality we've had. But regardless, he was in, probably our top 3 players of the season. And now, we know that Sanchez had 2 poor games against Arsenal. The first against Carabao, where he gifted them 2 goals. And obviously that game at the Emirates we lost in the league, he didn't cover himself in glory either. But nobody was saying before the Aston Villa game, I reckon Sanchez probably needs to be dropped.
No, not at all.
You could argue, when you're a Premier League footballer, you're 27, 28 years of age, you're playing for Chelsea, you should probably have thicker skin. And if Sanchez's confidence has been dented by being dropped, then that perhaps is a bit of a concern in itself. But, as you say, Rosenior created that problem for himself. And now he's dented Sanchez's confidence. It looks back to sort of the Sanchez we kind of all know, making mistakes, looking nervy. Yeah. And that really doesn't help in a back line where the centre-back partnership's constantly changing pretty much from game to game. There's no continuity there. That's not helpful.
No trust.
Chelsea must be one of the only teams in the league that is pretty much every game or every other game we've got a different centre-back pairing.
It's like 10 or 11.
Or a different goalkeeper in there.
Yeah.
You look at it, right? How important... You don't have to just look at successful Chelsea teams. Look at any successful team. The goalkeeper and the 2 centre-backs, that triangle, those 3 there, the relationship between that is probably the single most important thing on the football pitch.
Yeah.
And yet, every single game, that is pretty much different. And you can't get any consistency, any continuity, any understanding whatsoever. No. And we're massively paying the price for that as well.
Yeah, 100%. What you've just talked about, I've got a guy that is in my comment section quite a lot called Mario, and he calls it the Bermuda Triangle, right? And he's been going on about it and he's 100% right, man, and you are 100% right. And like I say, this is like another problem of Liam Rosenior's making, and it's like a little bit Enzo Maresca as well, because Enzo Maresca had 9 different centre-back pairings up until he got sacked just this season. Do you know what I mean? So he was chopping and changing a lot as well. But yeah, it's just wild, man. Like the Sanchez getting dropped because trying to make Sanchez play out from the back, then Sanchez getting dropped, then bringing Jorgensen in. That 4-1 to Aston Villa probably did us more harm than good in the grand scheme of things, because then it's like, oh, okay, it worked, so we put him in for the next one. Then we get pasted by PSG, and he is a big part to do with that as well. That was when he didn't even walk over to the fans at the end of the game. He just walked off the pitch, didn't he? And now we've had to bring Sanchez back because we've had to re-drop Jorgen. Do you know what I mean? And it's just like, and it just feels like, for me, like the thing that I'm a little bit annoyed at, well, a little bit, obviously a lot of it, but the thing that I'm annoyed at is they've prioritised the style of play over the end of the season, essentially. By that's what it looks like, doesn't it? It looks like they've gone, right, okay, we are going to try and get the team playing in this way, and that is more important than making sure that we get results up until the end of the season. Yeah,
I just think, for me, the season, the moment Maresca walked out at the start of January, the season was wrapped then. It was finished. It was done. Yeah. Because you bring in an inexperienced manager, someone that's never managed in the Premier League, never managed in the Champions League, players that have never played Premier League and Champions League simultaneously, manager that's never done that, as I said, and then on top of that, he's showing his inexperience. Maybe it's an arrogance, maybe it's a naivety, maybe he just doesn't get it. But how on earth are you trying to come in mid-season and change the way that we're playing? You bang on about, this team have played, the most more games than any other team in Europe since the start of last season.
Yeah.
Yet you're trying to get them to play in some sort of expansive way at the end of a season where they've basically played 2 seasons straight through with a 2-week break after the Club World Cup.
Yeah.
He portrays himself as an intelligent guy. I don't think he's stupid, but that is the height of stupidity, and it's being reflected in our performances, it's being reflected in the way that the players are playing on the pitch. And as we discussed earlier, it's evident they don't believe in this. They're not buying into it. They don't respect him. They don't rate him. Now, whether that's right or wrong, in terms of end of the day, whether you respect or rate a manager or not, you should be giving your best on the pitch. And you can look at that and you think, well, actually, these players, these lot, okay, they're not as good as what perhaps some people think they are, but they're certainly not as bad as what we've seen on the pitch in the last few weeks. So they shouldn't be getting away, free of any criticism. What they've done is a disgrace as well. So yeah, look, it's a whole combination of things, and I think ultimately a lot of our failures come down to that decision not to sign a centre back, and now we're seeing it's being highlighted even more because Maresca had set up to mask the deficiencies, and now Rossini is setting up in a way that exposes all of them. It's just mad.
Yeah, it's nuts. It is nuts, isn't it? It's just like, here are our problems on a silver platter for the entire Premier League to take advantage of. Yeah. No, it's 100% true, man. And things like the PSG game, that's a signal to anyone else that plays this. Like, we've got the Manchester clubs, man. That's going to be rough. Like, I expect, is it Yeovil we're playing? No.
Port Vale in the FA Cup,
Port Vale, yeah. Port Vale, I expect that to be a bye because they're literally
we'll beat them.
League One.
We're bad, but we're not. I'd like to think we're not that bad.
Can you imagine?
I think we'll beat them. But yeah, look, you look at the 2 Manchester games coming up, next 2 Premier League games, both at Stamford Bridge. 2 teams that are better than us.
And we've been bad at home.
And our home record is awful. I think we've won 6 league games at home this season, which is diabolical. So, I mean, look, to be honest, it doesn't really matter where we're playing right now. When you're playing badly, it's irrelevant where you're playing. So yeah, I mean, I don't hold much hope for those games either.
No. Okay, cool. Well, I'm going to move on a little bit. We talked about we'll talk about some personnel, some ins. I'll say some ins. We've had one in, right? So I would like to get your opinion on Jeremy Jacquet. Obviously, that was what all of the, it was loads of PR about it, and it looked like it was nailed on until it wasn't. And then we brought in Mamadou Sarr, and in that whole thing, we also brought back Aaron Anselmino and sent him to Strasbourg, and I think he's got injured again. So, do you think we missed out on Jeremy Jacquet? And do you think Mamadou Sarr has a long-term future at Chelsea?
I mean, look, factually, we missed out on Jeremy Jacquet. Look, again, it wouldn't have made any difference to this season because the deal was always going to be for the summer. My issue wasn't missing out on Jacquet. My issue was all the public reports, all the briefings put out. This is our primary target. This is the guy that we want. X, Y, Z. And then you miss out on him. You don't get it. The optics are really poor. Look, if we just said we're looking for a centre back, we hadn't briefed any interest or whatever, and we ended up not getting anyone, and we recalled Sarr, people would find that a lot more palatable. That's a lot more acceptable.
Yeah, for sure.
But when you this is our top guy, this is our primary target, we're pursuing him the entirety of January, and you can't get a deal done and you miss out to one of your rivals. From an optics standpoint, it is embarrassing, to not be able to see out a deal that you've made so public. I don't think Jacquet was right for us. The last thing we need is another 20-year-old centre-back to come in to the pool of centre-backs that we've got, regardless of how good a talent you think he is. He's going to go to Liverpool, play alongside a Van Dijk for a year minimum, and that's going to be so beneficial to him, whereas at Chelsea he's not got that calibre of player to learn from and play alongside. So look, I'm not disappointed that we missed out on Jacquet. I'm more disappointed on what missing out represented to us.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense, man. Like you said, the optics of it are kind of the worst thing, aren't they? Because it was just like, there was so much noise, there's so much PR. Even, I think, before Liam Rosenior literally came out and been like, he's the kind of player that we'd never been able to get at Strasbourg, but now I'm at Chelsea in the Premier League and it's the kind of player that we can go for. It's like, that was well too much, man. It's like, chill your beans, bruv. Like, but yeah, no, I agree. Like, I find the narrative around him really weird as well, because when we were linked with him, everyone was like, who is this guy? Like, he's not very good. And then all of a sudden, when Liverpool signed him, you got Fabrizio Romano Fofana coming out being like one of the best young talents in the world, and now all of a sudden it's this like big deal. So I'm with you, man. I'm not too fussed about missing out on him as a player, but I definitely think that we took another commercial hit on our image. Do you know what I mean? Just by making that so public. So yeah, what do you think about Mamadou Sarr?
Look, he's got ability.
Mm-hmm.
He's talented. We've seen what he's done at Strasbourg. He was very good in the AFCON final and the AFCON tournament in general for Senegal. But again, someone that's very, very young, someone that is very inexperienced, someone that is going to make mistakes, as we saw in the second leg against PSG inside the opening 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And look, it's someone for the future, but arguably for me, someone that is not ready right now and is not of the quality to be playing for Chelsea on a regular basis. And depending on what the makeup of the centre-backs is going to look like next season, in my opinion, when you're at that age, there is no point just being a squad player at like 20 or 21 years of age. You need to go and be playing. So for me personally, I don't see how he warrants being a regular starter at Chelsea next season. He was brought back. You talk about Liam Rosenior liking him. Rosenior's bigged him up. Oh, I worked with him at Strasbourg. He's great. I'm excited for his career, blah, blah, blah. Barely plays him. Hato, who was signed as a left back, seems to be preferred at centre back to him. And so you're sort of thinking, well, what was the point of actually bringing him back when he's played a handful of games? He's not in favour. And yeah, for me, I like him. I think there's ability there, but for the betterment of his career, next season, unless he's going to be playing regularly, which I can't see right now, I don't think he'll play. He'll play against Port Vale, but I can't see him featuring in many of those Premier League games between now and the end of the season.
I mean, depends on how long's Chalobah out for.
Depends on Chalobah's injury, of course. But again, as I said, Hato seems to be preferred. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if Tosin was maybe, preferred to him, regardless of ability and whatnot. So for me, Mamadou Sarr, for the betterment of his career, he needs to be going on loan somewhere next season and not a loan back to Strasbourg. If you can get a Premier League loan, or you can get a loan to, I don't know, Italy, Spain, a top club there or something, that for me is going to be far more beneficial for him. Yeah. You're seeing it with Acheampong now. There's no point being a young, talented player if you're not getting the minutes you need. Yeah,
that's true. That's a good chat, actually. Like Acheampong as well. Like I didn't have a note for it, but there's so much to talk about Acheampong in the grand scheme of things, isn't there? Like, even under Maresca, I thought it was absolutely wild. Acheampong had like 3 great games in a row and then just disappeared again. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And he's been played a bit of right back by Liam Rosenior, but he's not really getting the opportunities. What has Acheampong got to do to get more time in this team? Now, what I will say is he has made 2 errors leading to goals, which is up there with, but he's 20 years old and that, do you know what I mean? But do you think that's the reason we're not seeing as much of him, or do you think that there's something else afoot?
I think a combination of both. When you've got young players, you have to accept they're going to make mistakes. They're not going to learn or develop or build confidence is as soon as they make a mistake, they disappear for a month and then they suddenly come back in the team. That is not how you manage young footballers. If you put in your faith in someone, you have to accept they're going to make mistakes and you stick with them through that process. Now, obviously, at a big club, the pressure to win is huge and you haven't always got the ability to be able to do that. But if you're going down the route that we've gone down, then you have to accept that actually, do you know what? Maybe we do have to be a team that does play these young players through these mistakes. And if this is the model you're doing, this is what you believe in, let's see these guys play. Genuinely now, I don't need to see Tosin. I don't need to see Badia Shil. I don't need to see these guys playing. Play the guys for the future. This is the model you're preaching and you're backing so hard and you believe in. Let's see you play them. But in terms of Acheampong, I don't really understand why he's not playing. And ultimately, for me, I think Chelsea can say whatever they want. Rosenior can say whatever he wants about him. All the reports about Acheampong do not match up with the actual reality of the situation. And for me in the summer, I think he's gone. Look, we're going to sign another centre-back in the summer, God knows who. That's going to push him further down. At right back, you've got James and Gusto. They're both going to be here next season, you would imagine. There's not really any space there. And I think he's been sold a dream. He's probably been lied to, like many of these players have, to get him to sign that 5-year deal just to protect his value. And if I'm Achimpong, if I was advising him, I'd be telling him to get out of Chelsea as quickly as possible because the games just simply aren't there for him.
Yeah. I mean, I spoke to my friend Kai about this the other day, and I would hope that if he isn't at the club next season, it's because we've sent him on loan to like a Crystal Palace or something. Do you know what I mean? Because they were interested in him in January, weren't they, when this whole thing was going on?
I understand why we didn't accept that because he played a couple FA Cup games and some pity minutes on the bench in the Premier League. Like, what good's that? You might as well have sent him to Palace. I don't know how much he would have played at Palace, but you'd imagine he would have played significantly more than what he's done here. So I don't understand the point in turning that down.
Even just the experience of being like under a different manager with a different team that are facing different struggles and troubles and stuff. Do you know what I mean? And an opportunity to kind of like get in there, whereas he knows he's kind of at the bottom of the rung at the moment. And you made a really good point there. It's like the hypocrisy that we're seeing from the messages. Young players are the future, and I feel like when Maresca came in, he blindly signed that contract and agreed to that, but he was very much like other managers where he definitely favours experience. Liam Rosenior may be a little bit more willing to give youth a chance, but as you said, Mamadou Sarr and Josh Achiampong are being put behind Yoro Hato, who's a left back and inverted midfielder. The whole thing is just a bit wild, man. The whole thing is just a bit wild. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have a little bit of fun. We're going to do a keep, loan or sell with Chelsea centre backs. I haven't got a list down, so I'll just do them off the top of my head. So keep, loan or sell. Tosin as Arabioyo.
Yeah, gone. Yeah, sell, get rid.
And pure profit at the end of the day. So that's a bonus there. Right, so that's Tosin. Benoit Badiashile.
Sell.
100%. Yeah, I totally agree.
I just don't know what's happened to him. I genuinely don't know. He's had a few injury problems and whatnot. He's never really recovered from that groin or hamstring injury that he suffered at the end of that Potter season when Lampard was in charge for that little spell. He's never really recovered from that. He's just not been the same player. We've seen glimpses in a few games, but he needs to go. Not good enough.
I think you kind of said it, man. It's like when he had, and he has had, like, for instance, he played well against Liverpool earlier in the season. Like, but that's it's pockets, isn't it? It's literally glimpses. But I think with players like this, Tosin as well, when you've got a Thiago Silva next year, it's fine because they cover up a lot of your mistakes and stuff. But when that isn't there and you've got all of this pressure on you, then, all of a sudden his defensive frailties. I mean, he's a good passer of the ball. Like, he's a quality over quantity guy. I did like a deep dive on the stats a while ago. He doesn't make as many passes as anyone else, but his accuracy is normally better. But again, doesn't matter if you can't defend, doesn't it? So Tosin gone, Benoit Badiashile, Axel Disasi.
Well, he's gone. Yeah. I mean, I don't really consider him a Chelsea player anymore. I know he is technically, but he's gone. Yeah.
I'm concerned that we find ourselves in the same situation that we did at the end of last season, where we'd loaned him to Aston Villa. He'd had a reasonably good loan spell, and no one came in for him. Or he was turning down deals left, right, and centre. West Ham, Bournemouth, and Wolves all wanted him, and he was like, "No, I only want to go to Europe." But no one wanted him. So worried about that. So that's 3. Levi Colwill.
Yeah, obviously keep. Yeah, I think the important thing with Colwill is, though, like, don't put too much expectation on him when he comes back. He's not going to be at that level straight away. We don't know what level he's going to be at. We don't know how he's going to come back from this injury. It's going to take him weeks, months, probably to get back to full fitness and full performance. So I'm concerned that a lot of people are just sort of thinking, Colwell's going to come back and everything's going to be fine. That expectation on him has got to be lowered because he's not going to be up to speed for a good few months next season. He just isn't.
I've got a feeling that it's going to be very much like it was with Reece James, like it was with Wesley Fofana, like it was with Romeo Lavia even as well. Like, I don't think we're going to see a lot of Levi Colwill like game after game until the back end of next season, to be completely honest. I feel like our medical department are so hot on making sure that there's no reoccurrence and everyone's given time and stuff, so I'm not expecting to see him, but obviously I'm looking forward to seeing him, and we might even see him at the back end of this season. But with how much of a mess our defence is at the moment, I don't even if he come back fully fit 100% like it had never happened,
don't want to see him this season. Don't need to. There's no point.
No, I agree. Okay, so Trevor Chalobah.
I would keep him. I know he's got 2 years left on his deal at the end of the season. That's the point under this ownership where either you sign new terms or you're kind of moved on. I would keep him as a squad player, as a 3rd or 4th choice centre back. I think that's absolutely fine. No issues for me there. I think he loves the club. He's Chelsea through and through. I think he'd kind of be accepting of that. But I've got a feeling that Chelsea probably will look to get rid of him. But I personally keep him.
I 100% agree with you on that. And And I think that we should keep him for a few reasons. A, he's now one of our experienced heads, which we don't have a huge amount of. He's actually performed relatively well this season, and as a rotational option especially, I think he'd be really good for that.
Yeah.
But because he's an academy player, like, we're going to move on to Wesley Fofana in a minute, but if you sell Trevor Chalobah for 30 mil and you sell Wesley Fofana for 50, you make 30 mil on Chalobah, and you probably still take a loss on Wesley Fofana. So I'm not convinced as well. They already know that Chalobah already knows, that they don't rate him that highly because they've tried to ship him out a couple of times already. Yeah. And if we do bring in this big centre-back target, Levi Colwill comes back, people like Mamadou Sarr start getting more game time, I'm not convinced Trevor Chalobah is going to be happy after being a first-team centre-back for Chelsea for this long to drop into a rotational role just because he loves Chelsea as well. So yeah, I 100% agree. I would keep him. I think he's, definitely the kind of player we need to keep around, but I just think the stars are aligned for him to get sold for a few reasons. So, Wesley Fofana.
If you'd asked me at the start of the season, I would have definitely said keep.
Mm-hmm.
I'm of the opinion now that I'm happy for him to go.
Yeah.
I just, it's he would have done 4 years come the end of this season. I just haven't seen enough from it. I just haven't seen the quality that we were expecting on a consistent enough basis. And I think we are better off moving on from him.
Yeah. I think any player that shows this sort of significant drop level that we've seen as well kind of needs to go, don't they? It's like, for me, it doesn't matter if on his best day, Wesley Fofana's great. If on his worst day, he's as bad as he's been recently. Yeah. I think for me, like, the top level of a player is all fine and good, but I think we need to pay far more attention to the bottom level of a player. Like Robert Sanchez, for instance. It doesn't matter that Robert Sanchez is a great shot stopper and can get you through most of a season if he is, as you said earlier, not thick-skinned enough to deal with the pressure and keeps on, getting into these situations. So yeah, that's kind of how I feel about Wesley Fofana. As much as I think he's great on his best day, his worst day costs us games. So Josh Achampong?
I think he's gone loan. I'd be hesitant to sell him, but I think he will be sold in the summer. But yeah, I'd loan him out. I think he needs to be loaned out. He needs to go and play regularly week in, week out.
I think Josh Achampong's an easy win. Not an easy win, but it will hurt the fan base. Like, there's already issues with the fan base. If you sell Josh Achampong now, that causes loads more problems, and I think, and ultimately, like, he needs to go and have like a Reece James style season where he goes out on loan and is the best player at a team or something like that. Mamadou Sarr.
I'd probably keep. Because I don't think we're going to be signing enough centre-backs to cover all the ones that might go out.
Yeah.
So I would keep him, but ultimately, as we discussed earlier, I think he actually needs to be playing regular. I don't see that happening at Chelsea. So I probably would send him back out on loan, but I think the club will keep him.
If we sell 4+ centre-backs this season, there will be a lot more game time for him because the ability to chop and change the pairing won't be there quite as much, won't it? So maybe, because the thing is, I think, like we said, I think Tosin's gone, I think Dizassi's gone, I think Badiashil's gone, I think one of Fofana or Chalobah will go, and I've got a feeling it will be Chalobah. So if we are getting rid of 4 centre-backs, there will be time. But I agree with you that if we bring in 2 centre-backs, then I would want him to see him go. Aaron Anselmino.
I think loan again, to be honest. Yeah. He did reasonably well at Dortmund, but again, had problems with his hamstring there. He's gone to Strasbourg. I think he only played maybe 3 or 4 times, if I remember rightly. And he's had issues again with that hamstring. So yes, he's been out on loan, but he's barely played. I don't even think he's played 20 games this season. So, I don't see a future for him at Chelsea next season. So that's got to be another loan and the focus on keeping him fit and actually playing a whole season somewhere.
And I think it's just going to be in order to sell him on again and make more money from him in the future.
I don't really see him making it at Chelsea, to be honest.
Because we bought him it was cheap. It was like 5-6 mil or something, wasn't it? It was like we got him from Argentina, I think, really, really, really cheap. But he's displayed enough potential for someone to come in maybe with like a 20 mil bid for him if he can last a season. But I think he's going to get sold. I think that's it. Like, we've got so many.
That probably is it. Anselmino, Sarr, Colwill, Achampong, Chalobah, Disassi, Badiashile, Tosin,
Hatto, but he's not really.
Hatto's going to be it. I'd keep Hatto. He's back up for the left back anyway. So yeah,
100%. Okay, so essentially we need to ship out, or we're probably going to ship out like 70% of our centre backs at the moment.
I genuinely think there's a very good chance that I think 100%. Forget the Sassy. I think 100% 2 centre backs leave.
Yeah, definitely.
Look, I think the 3 that are up for sale are going to be Chalobah, Tosin and Badiashile. I think 2 of those 3 will definitely leave, maybe 3 of them. And I also think if a decent offer came in for Fofana, I think they'd accept.
He wants to go back to Marseille because that's where he's from.
But I still think he could probably do better than that, or maybe not. I don't know.
I think if you look at like his attitude recently, sometimes it's not even about that, is it? Like he might just want to, because French people love French food and French culture and stuff as well. Like I lived in France for 4 years, and there's such a thing. Like they feel really connected to the motherland.
There's still Champions League football at the end of the day at Marseille. You'll be playing Champions League football. The league is not bad. It's a very good level. And Marseille's a massive football club. So I mean, whether they'd put the money on the table that Chelsea would be looking for is another question. I mean, what clubs would be interested in him? There'd definitely be a market for him. Is there a level of club that would come in that he would think is an acceptable level? There's a lot of things that sort of need to happen. But yeah, look, if an offer were to come in of around, as we discussed earlier, between 40 and 50 million, I think Chelsea would accept. Yeah.
It could be as well. Like I don't know so much about Marseille's team at the moment, but it might be a thing that they've got a player that we like the look of or something, or a 17-year-old in their academy.
We always tend to sort of think, can we get someone else involved in a deal? That seems to be like the only way they can negotiate something. But yeah.
All right. Okay, cool. So yeah, that's 70% of our centre-backs gone, hopefully, if we're lucky. And we'll wrap up the video with one thing, man. So we've talked about it in a little bit, but the idea is we both sort of agree as a centre-back has to come in, at least one. If you had your pick of centre-backs, let's say 2, but who would be your number 1 centre-back to come in? But if you could bring in 2, who would you like to see?
I mean, I'd love to see Nico Schlotterbeck come in from Dortmund.
Nice.
I think he's a top defender. I think he's someone that, would obviously instantly raise the level. I think he's someone that, is still at a decent age. I think he's someone that's got the leadership qualities as well, can defend well, is obviously a German international. Under no illusions there's going to be other teams probably interested in him.
For sure.
But I'd be looking at someone like a Nico Schlotterbeck. And then in terms of another one, another defender that I do like is obviously Bastoni. I know people always talk about Bastoni, and it's probably going to take ridiculous money to get him out of Inter Milan, or whether it's very hard to get Italian players to leave Italian clubs. It just seems to be one of those things.
It's the food, man. I swear, it's the food.
They'd almost. It seems to be easier to like do transfers between Inter and Juventus, Inter and Napoli or whatever, than it is to actually get them out of the league. But look, if I could have 2, I'd have Schlotterbeck and Bastoni. But I think for me, a Schlotterbeck type centre half would be great for us.
Yeah, it's just a bit more robust than the rest of the guys we've got at the moment, isn't it?
But it's also not. But you also look at the centre back market, and it's like there's not a lot of standout names. There's not a lot of players in that centre half where you're like, that's going to make a massive difference. That's giving us exactly what we need. We need someone to come in and lead the back line.
Yeah,
there's not many of those characters out there.
No, it's absolutely true, man. It's like I think that I know he was really old, but I think we really, really missed a trick in not desperately trying anything to get Thiago Silva to come back. When
do you know the mad thing is? He'd still be starting. I genuinely believe he'd still be starting for us this season.
Yeah.
I think we missed a massive trick there. He should have retired at this football club. I don't think he wanted to. He didn't need to play every week.
No.
But you just see the impacts that he has. You even had England this week. Lewis Hall, the media for England. Talking about how much of an impact Silva had on him when he was at Chelsea. It's something that sort of thing being overlooked is major red flags against the club in general from an ownership point of view.
Yeah, it's almost like a player coach role, isn't it? At the end of the day, and we are desperately missing something like that, man. And I would really love to see us go in for an experienced centre back, even one that wasn't going to play a lot. Do you know what I mean? Just someone who's kind of been around the game and stuff. And it's crazy because we did that with it was Abramovich still when we got Thiago Silva, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was on the Lampard. Yeah, we signed him on a free. Yeah.
But he obviously made that transition, and he was still there with Pochettino and stuff, and he was just obviously like so transformative. And it just annoys me that Blueco seem to be a very data-led company, right? And they can't even look at the recent data and be like, "Oh, look, that worked. Let's do that again."
Yeah.
But yeah, nice one, man. This has been an absolutely fantastic chat. It feels like a good place to wrap it up. Any last words on Chelsea, our season, or the centre back before we close down?
No, I don't think so. I've just hope for the best, really. I don't think anyone's really got any hope or expectations that we're going to finish top 5 or we're going to win the FA Cup or anything like that. I think there's a general feeling that, you just want to get to the end of the season and kind of forget about all this, but we still got stuff to play for at the end of the day. So I guess we just have to strap in for the ride and hope for the best.
Yeah, well said, mate. Well said. So, guys, that is it. It's time to talk about Chelsea's defence. And thank you, Charlie, so much for coming onto the channel. Guys, if you are watching me, chances are you've probably already seen Charlie's channel. But if you haven't, get over to Blue Brother, subscribe, and yeah, it's a good time, man. I love the match stuff. I love the collabs you do, and the channel's absolutely great. So, nice one. Thanks very much for sticking around to the end of the video. If you did, we will catch up with you all very, very soon. Take it easy.
Peace.